And so I'm going to hand it over now to Dr. Wang.
Thank you, Olga. And let me share my presentation. So I think as instructors, we heavily rely on the PowerPoint. I hope I don't take up all the time so I can have a conversation with the audience because we are all teachers. So I want to start to say, as educators, we are fortunate to have lived 2 centuries. Yeah, but we also face big challenges to transform our education system from the positivistic model and to the learner-centered model. So, and this ePortfolio fit into this type of innovation, and that's just one of the innovations that educators have been doing, and I was fortunate to be part of it. So I wanted to start with Bloom's famous taxonomy, and we have all relied on our design and testing, how to evaluate our learners. And as you can see, after he passed, this model endured. So in the turn of the century, his prodigies revised the model. So the model now has a little bit renamed with some of the specific thinking skills or the competencies. I would like to use the competencies as the also word. So the lower level, like the first 4 blocks, would be appropriate to test the knowledge of understanding and the applying. You can give a question like that. But the higher levels, for example, to evaluate the situation, and even more about creating something is not existing. You can just take it from the template. So today I teach many. I would have to say none of the subjects I'm teaching today I have learned when I was in the school and more than 30 years ago. So, and this is exactly our workforce now facing as well. So as educators, our responsibility is no longer to give them a certificate or the diploma and a transcript with GPA. So what we needed to provide the evidence of what they be able to do. So I was told when I entered into the program, the golden time in librarianship, it was before they graduate, the recruiters already promised their jobs. So they were just sitting there waiting to finish the courses and graduate. So they already landed on the job rating. But today they said every job had 100 applicants, sort of like that. So therefore, how you stand up among those applicants. So that's a challenge. So let's look at what the ePortfolios can do for our graduates and also for our program. So from the perspective of educators, and this is really a new paradigm and a new pedagogy, we have to change it the way we do our teaching. And we needed to focus on the outcome versus the input output. Right, so students tend to memorize things and they do well in their tests, but whether they can apply the knowledge in the real life, and that's a different story. So this needed to be considered in our teaching as well. So we needed to focus on quality and instead of quantity. So learners need to take a responsibility because eventually they have to transform what we taught into their own skill sets and into their own competencies. So how the evidences can provide for our program as the accreditation. So accreditation should have both the output, the numbers, and also the outcomes. So the ePortfolio will fit such a great evidence for the evidence-based education outcomes. So from the learners, so their ePortfolios will be more than just a resume and a CV. So they can list what they can do but that's not always convincing. So therefore, if an ePortfolio can be demonstrating and what they can do, and that's we already have evidence for our students who really appreciate the ePortfolios being appreciated by their potential employers in their job seeking. So now, in order to develop successful ePortfolios, so we needed to have a career in mind. So what to choose earlier, not just to take courses. And they also needed to have the goal-oriented, if it's just a course related ePortfolio and not thinking about the grades. So try to set up the goals at the beginning of the semester and to work towards that goals. So then the professional identity, and that ePortfolio definitely can demonstrate the professional identity the student develop during the program. So our program usually take 2 years if full-time, and take 3 or longer if they are doing part-time. So, and the most important, as what I just said at the beginning, is everything I am teaching today, I have not learned. All those concepts didn't even exist when I was a student. So lifelong learning is something critically important for our students to succeed in the future. So the model here is the process towards products. So this may look a little bit dense, but it's actually not that much. So first, you need to look at like a treasury box. So we call it a repository. So we deposit our learning objects, outcomes. So the project from the course, yeah, and or outside of the course, and then to do some organization. So if you don't organize, later on you cannot find it, right? So you can say a bunch of things, but you need to organize hierarchically or with an indexing, some kind of function. And then you need to think about it. What this the product will demonstrate, what kind of knowledge I have, and what knowledge I used to build that object, and what kind of competencies I need, right? So we can read the books about how to drive, but we cannot say after reading the book we can drive, right? We needed to have an actual application level of skills in order to really drive. And there's an additional set of skills we need to produce that concrete evidence. So therefore, we created our ePortfolio as a product. It's delivered on the web, but not exactly a web page people just create, but we give the structure. So we wanted the students in the end of the program to reflect on the time they were with us, and also to demonstrate the knowledge. So they pick the knowledge they have, concepts they have applied to create the artifacts. So then from the artifacts, they can articulate the knowledge, how the knowledge being used, and the competences they need to create that artifacts. And then is an overall projection, what they see the future in their career and how they will continue to be a learner, lifelong learner. So what learning skills they learned during this process. So that is basically the model. So I will be brief on that. So therefore, the specific process is to set up the goals at the beginning. And those goals are not set without changing. They can revise over time, because once they get more courses, they may decide something else. They will be more interested, and they may drop some goals and add some other goals. So it also not necessary to be 4, and some may have 3 and some may have 5. Some even have more. And then they have to, for each goal, they need to take actions. So those are really planning process in these 2 paths. And then they have the outcomes linked to the action should result in the measurable or tangible outcomes. So those outcomes will provide evidences. And so that's basically how from the goal to the outcomes, that's a process specifics. So I'm going to be brief, because we have a lot that we could say. So here, a few feedback. During the process of we implemented this ePortfolio as a capstone, and we actually collect the survey. In the end, it's anonymous, so we don't really know who said what. So here is a few things. And so this one wrote a lot. So say that the best option, because we had other options such as thesis or take the class in-text closed note comprehensive exam. So they feel that was the best option, and they have been proud of what they have produced. So I can take with me into my future career. So that was a very positive one. And so we asked them also the most memorable experience during this process. So they say that they finally see the product. So they was a very happy. So it's they see those things. So we helped them to develop that. We did have a committee also to provide the support and also to defend. So then, this was the part of perhaps was the hardest part. As you can see, this bottom one has a little bit not so positive comment, but I think it's also positive in many ways for us as a feedback. So students are not used to, they only respond to one instructor. So now they have to respond to 3 committee members. So they realized that the committee members had different expectations. So they struggled with that. So I think we needed to prepare them that, because in the future working environment, you may face different clients, different customers, and different level of supervisors. So it's not going to be all the same standards, right? So how to be able to be adaptable and to understand that and do the best. So it's still the bottom comment is also reflect their mindset still is responding to what you want. So we need to change that if we wanted to have a successful ePortfolio. So now the other things I wanted to emphasize is during this whole process, how do we be able to succeed? We need a commitment from the students throughout the program. The day when they into the program, they need to decide that's the option they wanted to go through, and they needed to reflect frequently and work closely with the advisor, and go back to the process. And then engagement of the faculty, and that's a very important as well. And so the faculty does spend a lot of time working with them, not as much as a thesis option, but it does spend quite more time on critique and help. So as a devil's advocate, so they needed to be aware. It's not to criticize your work, it's to help you to improve and better. Maybe we see something you did not see, right? Comparing thesis as a product, and I think they both are valuable. So if their goal is to be a researcher, and then we perhaps recommend the thesis option. But if they wanted to be a professional to do a lot of things, and then presenting their professional competencies, a set of competencies, will be something they should pursue. So my conclusion here, I jumped from the beginning to the end, try to fit in the time. And the much needed reform in higher education is often the most difficult to carry out. Yes, and I was fortunate enough to have, as a senior faculty member in the school, I was getting enough support from my faculty members. And not at the beginning all had the buy-in, because some feel, oh, that's actual work, right? Yeah, so, and we do need to have the administrative support. So the administrations needed to commit on the support for this program. So I have been in a few conferences in the ePortfolio conferences, and several, UK is big on that. They started even with the high school, instead of doing tests, they do the ePortfolio. And Australia also doing quite a lot, and the US and a lot of four-year college, the university has a supporting system to develop ePortfolio, some as the first year experience and some as the entire experience. So the ePortfolio available for the potential employers to access. So they're actually in their closed system. So, and so I wanted to, let me see, I wanted to see if I can share a few ePortfolio. You can see this is one of the early ones, the committee members here, and she has her design. So as you see, the structures are very similar and has a reflection into the final projection. So this person has a little bit additional skill, and she had 10 artifacts that she could not use for that. So put it on this repository as a slideshow. And another, I wanted to hide this. I have a hot bar on my, you cannot. Yeah, I don't know how to get rid of this bar there. This is frustrating me with this. Yeah, normally I use the, yeah, usually I use the, yeah, okay, let me go to the other one. So here is another one, and you can see they are very individualized. So you can
understanding these underlying technologies so that can give users insights about balancing information.
So it was like a quick elevator speech to show how the other, yeah. And then here is another one. And this one who did the triangular to connect the knowledge and skills in the particular way. So that's all I'm going to just show here. I'm going to stop right here. And we still, I meant to leave a few minutes for discussion.
May I start with a question?
Yes, please.
It's good to see you. One of the things I do is try to make sure that we have teamwork as part of their final project. When I teach management of information organizations, part of being in management is being a part of a team. How would they best show that in their ePortfolio?
Great question. And I also encourage a group project. Usually I require them to ask the contribution, which part of the project they contributed and which part of the project they worked together. So they usually write meeting minutes and all these things. So, and that's a part of it they can articulate. So when they present individual artifacts, they would say this is a group project because they wanted to show the potential employers, how they can work with a group, right? So usually I get a question from my former students as a reference, said, how this person work with, so if they did the group project with me, I said yes, but some group fell apart, right?
Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Wang. Part of a sort of a follow-up to that same one. So soft skills are so big these days, and do you have suggestions for students as to how they, it's kind of along the lines of Meredith's question, how they can actually kind of showcase soft skills versus their hard skills?
Okay, for example, like a leadership skill, this soft skill, great.
Analysis and things
yes,
like that.
yeah. So I would encourage them to say what they did. If they are president of a student chapter or the officer of student chapter, whether they contributed to the association, they, all these things they can articulate. So they can even put some visual. So I always ask them to try to video, some of the events to be substantiated.
Well, that's great. Thank you.
One question. The example that you showed, notice that your students, they used WordPress. So are there other tools that out there that they can use for someone who might not be, who might not know how to use WordPress? Are there other tools that you can recommend?
Yeah. Oh, now they have more tools. When we started, like 2009, we started. I was on the committee, and we developed for a number of years, and finally, so WordPress I find out was really a very strong, and so I don't want to talk more about WordPress. But at that time, we didn't have technology support in university in order to launch this very quickly, and this is a free. So every student sign up for free and do this. Yeah. So they can make it password protected. So therefore, only the committee member who can access to the ePortfolio. But we have the award winning. The ones I show you, some of them are the award winning ePortfolios. And then we made them, they had to be available because we want to show them for our accreditation.
And I'll just add on to that, I think what Dr. Wang is talking about is like in Canvas, we do have both an ePortfolio tool as well as now a Canvasfolio tool. It's important to know the distinction because the ePortfolio tool is the older one. It's not very versatile, but the Canvasfolio tool, and you get to them both by going to your count level at the top of the left-hand menu. The Canvasfolio tool is actually Portfolium, and they instructor bought Portfolium, and it's a very versatile. It even has some sort of LinkedIn type features where you can connect and everything. It's a great tool. And
yeah, I agree. I agree with
course you can.
No, yes. Yeah, agree. For example, Virginia Tech, they have the courseware system, and they have their own folio attached to the course system. They worked with vendor, and so their student ePortfolio not public accessible. So I think that our model is slightly different in a way. So so I think there's so many layers, a lot of decision to be made. I know, Marianne, I remember you and I talked, right? You wanted to do this. I hope at least for undergraduate, we should start it as a course or something. I'm interested in perhaps offer a first level of something, just give them some skills to start. And so if they start to say, wow, this is great. I didn't know I did so many things. So my students said, I'm surprised myself. I actually had a lot of, first they said, okay, where are my products, right? They didn't know that. Once they started, they said, oh gosh, I have a lot. I have more, I have 10, right? This student, Joy, had 10. I said, no, choose the best ones.
Oh, and I think it's wonderful that you had a course that actually kind of walked them through that process and kind of scaffolded them to help and everything. Yeah,
yes,
that's wonderful. You're a pioneer in this area.
Thank you. But that course was actually tough to teach because students sometimes, it's not my best evaluated course, just to be honest.
Another thought I had, one time I taught a capstone class and I used Google Sites for the ePortfolio. So how do you feel about Google Sites? I found it to be intuitive, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Any tool can support web delivery. That's all. So it's the structure you decide. So we standardize the structure, but we did not standardize the specific content. So we don't want it to be one size fit all, but we do want the structure across the students are the same. So therefore we can go see, okay, what they say, the knowledge they mastered, what the competencies they are showing. So this student is showing this competence in data related. The other student showing the competences in something else, right? So management or archive. So that's how they individualize themselves and to make a difference in their job seeking.